Yeah, yeah. Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce, and I'm live today with Dimko Zhlutenko. That's my best Ukrainian. And he's just commented, I've got quite a lot going on in my background. Someone said yesterday, it's a bit crazy in your background. You need to put a screen behind and just have it more organized. I'm like, no, I want all my Ukrainian stuff just littered all over the place. And in fact, I have a Dzyga's paw patch right here. With right next to me randomly. It wasn't even planned. He just sat there next to me. Anyway, Dimko, thank you so much for coming on. Just to give a little bit of an introduction to you, as far as I know, and I'll let you do all the talking in a second. But I met you in Lviv after visiting Dzyga's Paw, which is a charity that you started that you're going to talk to us about. And I met your wife there, who's kind of taken over the reins of the charity as you have joined the Unmanned Systems Brigade, and we'll talk about that. And you then came and met us that night at a restaurant after we'd eat a Georgian restaurant. Lovely food as ever in Ukraine, and it was fascinating to talk to you. You've got an awful lot to say about an awful lot of different topics. You have expertise in, you're learning, I think, political science at the moment. You're studying that whilst also being in the Unmanned Systems Brigade, which is fascinating in itself, and then all the experience of working with drones in the charity Dzyga's Paw. So, would you like to just give an introduction of yourself to the audience, and then talk us through kind of your journey from, I guess, the beginning of the war to where you're at now? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, Jonathan. Happy to be here. Happy to talk to you, all you brilliant people out there. And yeah, I guess my story is quite simple. I'm just a ordinary Ukrainian guy with a background in software engineering. I did a lot of that kind of work and it enabled me to travel the world and enabled me to learn great English, which I'm shamelessly putting to use right now. And I think that lifted me to kind of a middle class of Ukrainians, and I was able to learn so much about the freedoms that we have and how people live in the world generally. So I was able to compare. And in 2022, when the invasion started, I was literally going off from a late night call. I was working with a New Zealand American company, and you can imagine the time difference of me being in Ukraine and talking to guys in New Zealand and America. So that was like 2 a.m. or something. I went to bed, and in about 3 hours, I got waken up by a phone call from a friend saying, "Hey, the war has started." I think that's pretty usual. And yeah, I decided, well, I might just try to do my best to save my country. I didn't think about doing any charity or anything like that back in the day. It was just very chaotic and just did whatever I could to help someone else fight a war or help the displaced people, etc. And I've started out of anxiety, I guess. I've started talking about that on social media, particularly on Twitter. And I really had maybe like 500 followers on there, mostly my friends from the IT industry on the conferences I've spoken on or anything. And it kind of started rolling. Many people were interested in authentic updates from Ukraine directly from the ground. And many people also didn't trust mainstream media for some reason. And they found me as that authentic voice, especially that I know a bit, at least I like to think that I know a bit about Ukrainian history. Yeah, so and also I then as I've spent my some amount of my own money that I had in savings from the IT jobs, they paid very well. Um, I started spending them on helping my friends who were fighting, some of my classmates, some of the friends that I've met working in the IT. And yeah, it really first it touched my soul that I was able to help them directly with no middleman or anything. They said, hey, we need night vision. Hey, we need some bulletproof vests or anything. And I just tried my best to get it to them. So started talking about spending my own money to get that gear to them. Um, Started talking about that on social media, and I think this is how it got rolling because many people they found this to be a very authentic effort, like kind of grassroots initiative, and started throwing money at me, or
Well, it's
just
interesting
yeah.
because the war is itself. I mean, there's been elements of crowdfunding, if you like, in wars before. Like the communities have come together to provide things for soldiers and whatnot, going back in history. So it's not like a new thing, but the scale and the methods that have been utilised to help the Ukrainian armed forces in this conflict have never been seen before. And this
I
truly is
agree.
like a crowd-funded war in so many ways. I mean, from my own point of view, we've raised, my own channel has raised for 4 trucks for Car for Ukraine, 2 trucks um, for NAFO, 3 Snatch Land Rover medivacs with a couple of other channels and other things that we've done as well. And that's just one channel, right? And so you multiply this out, and then you were at the center of this at the beginning of the war, as you say, with people throwing money at you to try, because they saw you as a way that they could help with the war, and empowering them to have some effect on the outcome of the war in some sort of small way.
I absolutely agree, and it's not new in any way. Although, as you said, the scale, because of the social media, because of the ways that we transmit the information to other people, it changed the whole game here. And in Ukraine, personally donated a lot before 22 to one of the organizations called Повернись живим, Come Back Alive. It's the biggest
Mm.
charity that Ukraine has regarding the military stuff. And it only was a very small amount of donations from Ukrainians, from a very limited group of people. But it mostly never was about donations from abroad. And I guess that's kind of the opportunity that I've seen that was created randomly for me and for my organization, or what would become an organization later. So I was just tweeting in English, and random people online, Westerners mostly from the United States, from Germany, from the UK, and all of them came up and said, "Hey, you can have my $20 for all of your great stuff that you're sending out to your friends in the army. So just spend these money as they were yours." That's exactly what they said mostly. And yes, I believe it had a great impact because we are only one organization. At the moment, we have raised over 3 million US dollars. Exactly from, you can also open the transparency page. I think that should be showing like the real data on what we have raised so far. Also, it's not anyhow staged or anything. Um, so maybe just taking along, just a demo effect. Anyway, so if you scroll down, it will show the live update on how much we have raised. Also, this is live data from some of our Excel sheets that are being pulled off. So the amount of donations from more than 70 countries that we've got, it made so much impact. And as you said, it's only one organization, as you are only one channel, probably grouped with some other guys, but in the end, it made great impact. But well, I think me being right now within the army, because what I did, I ran that organization for about 2 years, and I decided, well, that is great, that is enough. Maybe I could do something better. Maybe I could build the processes in organization in a way that someone else can take it over and run it as a real deal. So that's exactly what I did. My wife took it over, and I joined the armed forces, as you said, the Unmanned Systems Forces, one of the battalions out there. And yeah, that's my work now. And now I'm a bit in the rear, waiting for some training to start. So I got a few days off for this.
So
Um, Yeah.
Yeah, if we sort of go back a little bit to uh, you know, Jigger's Paw. So why is it called Jigger's Paw? And what is it exactly that you guys fundraise for and do?
It's called in the name of my dog, Dzyga. The name is well, it's a Ukrainian version of spinning top, spinning toy. Probably you know that kind of a little
Yep.
thing that
Yep.
spins a toy for the kids. So that's her name basically, and in the very beginning in like 2022 we were packing a lot of stuff in our backyard in the garden, and I was putting like military clothing on grass and things like that. She would just run off, be silly, be just a random a happy dog kind of a thing, and step her paw onto one of the pieces of clothing that we sent to the army. And well, I thought that's the most hilarious thing that I've ever seen in my life. Maybe I should name a cherry like that, and because that would be enormously unique. Yeah, exactly. That's the dog. That's Ziga. So that's kind of how it got the name for it. And then the specialty what we do, well, me myself being a technologist, I really into all of that kind of technology thing, and being type of a geek guy. I decided that we should specialize in some niche that we know a lot about, and we've decided to, in the very beginning, to specialize in technology, specifically bringing civilian technology that could be used in the army to the army. And in the very beginning, like in spring 2022, we've been bringing Starlinks to the front lines. No one ever heard of Starlinks in spring 2022, and I guess we were among the first organizations, groups out there doing this and explaining this to the battalion commanders, and showing how the drones would function, and kind of, I guess, spreading that technology into the army. And that was purely civilian technology that you could buy off the shelf in any, I don't know, Costco or anything, in
And
Walmart.
yeah, so Starlinks communicate with satellites to be able to give you the ability to communicate and to get the internet, and so that your drones can talk to, I presume well, talk us through all the different ways that Starlink can be
Mhm.
used.
So I think the biggest and most popular use case out there that we have somewhat pioneered in 2022 is that you have your drone, you have your tablet. To the tablet, you have connected your drone, and you are flying through the tablet and a controller. And then you have a Starlink that gives you the internet, as you've described, through the satellite. And back in the day, it was enormously fast because the area wasn't so saturated with the terminals, and they all share some kind of capacity out there. Anyway, so you have your live stream from a drone streamed to literally any place in the world. That could be a command post in, I don't know, in the United States of America or anything, because it's all on the internet kind of a thing. So what we did is you have this Starlink, you have portable power station to run that Starlink to have the electricity. You have your drone pilot that has the tablet that has the controller to control the drone. The video is going on to the tablet, and from the tablet being streamed to any of the command posts. I don't know, in safer locations, 50 kilometers away, for all of the commanders to take more informed operational decisions regarding the battlefield. And this, I guess, shaped the war enormously in 2022 and in 2023, before Russians actually picked that up, before Russians started using the same kind of technology to achieve the same results. But in some way, this created an operational window of opportunity for Ukrainian forces, and I would say that it resulted in a Kharkiv offensive in the fall of 2022 being extremely successful successful. I was there at that time, and I've seen all of the preparations that happened, all of the countless months of just flying with the drones out there, live streaming, getting all of the mapping right, and taking out all of the artillery targets, all of the logistics, all of that played, I guess, crucial role. And now it's a de facto standard in the armed forces, in any unit, in any company. They have those kind of command posts, and literally no one now flies without a live stream. No drone flies without a live stream now
So
using Starlink. Yeah.
yeah, so fascinating stuff. So, and thanks for explaining all that. So, do the Ukrainians still have? Is there still an asymmetry there? That the Ukrainians still have an advantage in terms of comms and connectivity over the Russians?
Yes, I would say so, but Russians are. There is a symmetry here, and there is also a symmetry in other parts of the war, like in the infantry, manpower, kind of a thing. So I guess this signals that we fight a bit smarter, but we lack in so many other
Yeah,
areas. But
of course.
yes, still we have some advantage. Many Russian units have adopted Starlink actually, and it still works on the front lines because it's impossible to do the correct way of prohibiting Russians from using this because of the methods that SpaceX are using. They use geofencing, meaning that if uh, if the front line moves, you would have to update the fence where the
Yeah.
Starlink is able to operate, but it's almost impossible because frontline is quite dynamic. So, and it also limited our ability to do offensive operations. First occurrence of that was when Elon Musk explicitly said that he turned off Starlink when Ukrainian naval drones were attacking Crimean
Yeah.
Russian space. How do we say warships?
Mm.
Anyway, ships. And then in Kursk offensive, because no Starlink literally works in Kursk. So that's why we have to innovate with our own solutions that are not as effective because we don't have a shitload of money from U.S. Ministry of Defense.
Wow, interesting, fascinating. And we heard rumors the other day that this was coming from Russians themselves, saying they were losing connectivity with Starlink, and there were rumors that maybe they were getting turned off. And then I was wondering whether this was going to be happening with the Ukrainians and whether Elon Musk is going to become an even bigger douchebag than he already is. Um, have you heard anything about this?
I don't think that it's possible for Elon Musk to become a even bigger douchebag that he already is. Although on
Favorite
the
statement of the year. That. Thank you.
yeah, although on the topic, there is always some people whining about, well, this doesn't work, this works, and given that we are able to talk to a lot of units, especially through the charity, about what's happening to them, we literally never seen any kind of massive outage along the Ukrainian line, even though it was mass reported in all of the media and anything. It to us, it seems like there was just some technical difficulties, both on the side of Ukrainian soldiers and then on the side of Starlink. Mm. What happens regarding to Russian soldiers? I don't really think that it's possible to anyhow limit them from using the Starlinks. And I have seen some of, I would actually call them great Russian government initiatives to bring Starlinks and drones and thermal imagers and all of that technology jazz to the front lines. They have enormous scale and they are very successful in this. So there are some very good initiatives in Russia that are taking over that technology part from their Ministry of Defense.
Wow. Okay, so that's slightly scary. Are there any? Do you know? You'd be in a great position to be able to comment on this, being in the unmanned systems brigade. But are there any worries that Musk, with the new Trump administration coming in, that they will start curtailing the subscriptions, the amount of money the DoD, their Department of Defense, is now taken on the subscription payments for the Starlink terminals? Is that a worry for the Ukrainian armed forces, or are there ways around that? I know that you get a lot of your Starlinks through Dzyga's paw from uh, commercial entities in Europe that are associated, that might have like a Ukrainian CEO or someone working for them, or something, and you can get your Starlinks through Europe to at a really good price, to allow the Ukrainian army to access Starlinks reasonably. But is there still a worry that the US might be a bit volatile with how they deal with Starlinks?
I don't think that it's the biggest worry that we have. I think even if someone would think to turn off all of these Starlinks, we would still fight. And Kursk offensive is a great example of this. Like, no Starlinks work there, but we are able to, first we were able to do a mechanized breakthrough through the enemy lines, and
Yeah,
we are able to operate there for 6 months. I guess
yeah.
it's the anniversary today. So I think also that in our case, in case of Zigaspo, we never seen any government kind of a supplied Starlink or anything. All of the Starlinks that we've seen in through all these almost 3 years on the battlefield were only the Starlinks supplied by the volunteers,
Wow.
organizations, and different type of individuals, such as soldiers themselves. And well, we have some expertise on this because we have supplied, I guess, maybe like 700 of them. In the recent project, we did 202 Starlinks to Ukraine's defense. All of the
That's just yourself.
subscriptions,
Is that
yeah,
just what you've
yeah,
done?
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. Only
incredible.
our organization. Where we bought them, mostly in Europe, as you said, and on absolutely commercial rates, because first they just want to sell all of their Starlinks in Europe because no one really buys them. There is no target market for them, so that's why we were able to snatch them for I think like 250 euro or something per piece. But then the real deal comes when they charge for the subscription price, because it's I think $100 or something, and it's substantial. In our case, all of these subscriptions are being paid by the soldiers. In the very beginning, when we bought those Starlinks, we paid for the subscriptions ourselves with the donated money, but that quickly turned out to be very not feasible, I would
Yeah.
say, just because there were too many of them and the number was keep growing and growing and growing. So it was not pretty. So now it's just the soldiers who pay the subscription. They chip in each month, and that's how
Wow.
they roll. And I don't think, well, there is definitely some cost associated with um, United States Defense Ministry or anything that they have to pay to, I don't know, protect Starlink terminals, so they would be able to operate in Ukraine, although they operate in Poland. So it's literally a couple 100 kilometers away. Mm, but I don't think that they are gonna cut that anyhow. I think that status quo is fits everyone, and it's actually very important for Ukraine's defense. Not that Ukrainians would crumble overnight if you would turn off all of these Starlinks, but mm, that would not be pretty because we would have to rebuild a lot of communication infrastructure. And in Ukraine, we just don't have products technologically so powerful as Starlink. And it's indeed a great product.
A question here from JR. Actually, Starlink terminals have a
Yeah.
fixed price, but do you need to buy a new subscription for each unit used, or can the subscription be transferred to another terminal if one gets destroyed?
So if the terminal gets destroyed, you just throw the account out, and you don't even have to pay the subscription. You just unwire your card, and that's it. You get a new one.
Right.
But actually, what we did a lot, because we have figured out that there are a lot of common issues with Starlinks when they are deployed to the front lines. The first one are very obvious shrapnel pieces all over them. And actually, we figured out that it's repairable. And we found some shops who can do the job. And in almost any frontline city that you can see in Ukraine right now, there are like 5 workshops fixing Starlinks day and night.
I just reported on a guy, a Ukrainian guy that has released loads of open source information on how to repair Starlinks, and he's tooled up loads of people, and he's behind loads of repair shops having been able to do this now, and that's really important. So this
Yeah.
isn't happening anywhere else in the world. I don't think there's just that
No
Ukraine
one
is like
repairs them. Like,
yeah.
why would you need this?
Yeah, but of course you need it there. So yeah, Starlinks are super important, and as well as we saw with Jigga's Paw, the on the website, you do all sorts of things. And one thing that we saw when we were there around your gaff, around your house, is these electronic warfare units and jamming units. Do you want to talk us through them and what you do with them and how important they are?
They are actually extremely important because of the drone warfare that Ukraine got. And well, initially it was pioneered by Ukrainian forces. When in 2022 we started using shitload of drones to surveil, to drop explosive devices onto Russian forces. And for quite some time, as I said, that was a huge advantage to the Ukrainian forces. But then quickly, Russians figured out that it sucks to be dying, and decided, well, we should be doing some of that too. And it became somewhat symmetrical. And at the moment, even I would say that Russians are outpacing Ukrainians in terms of the drones that they are using because they have more of them. Uh, so specifically these electronic warfare devices, they are targeting the FPV drones, mostly kamikaze drones that are able to carry a few kilograms of a warhead, of an improvised explosive device on them. And yeah, just when they hit your car or when they hit you, they can explode. And this is rather unpleasant. So all of them, they work using the radio signal, and the things that you've shown are exactly radio signal jammers. You have some frequency, maybe like 400 hertz or something, and then if you turn on that jammer, it would exactly translate radio noise kind of a thing on that specific frequency that would break the signal of controlling the drone. So making it such that the operator of a drone would not be able to hit the target because he doesn't see anything, he cannot control, and the drone is not responding. And this is, I think, the best thing that Ukrainians have figured out what to do regarding Russian drones. And us personally, both in the organization and in my unit, we have seen shitload of Russian drones literally made on government facilities or anything. In Ukraine, it's mostly ad hoc kind of a thing where volunteers build that and smaller companies. But in Russia, it's literally government factories, and you see first all of those aluminium frames. Probably made at some aluminium factory or anything. No one does that in Ukraine. And also they have those kind of a quality check marks on each drone, which is fascinating. You can even see the name of the employee who quality checked this. And uh,
So one of the theories is that the Russians are not as reactive because they don't have that feedback loop going on with units directly or with the armed forces between these different kind of much more, like you say, ad hoc, reactive entities that are kind of lots of small or medium-sized drone manufacturers, and you with Dzyga's Paw, and you can talk about this in a second, do a lot of drone components as well, and that helps the kind of reaction to the needs of the front line. Whereas, as you say, the Russians are far more centralized, and they're making these things. And one of the theories is that they kind of put an order in for all of these thousands of drones, but then 6 months later, they're still creating those same drones, but the kind of warfare has moved on since then, or the needs on the front line have moved on. And so a lot of their drones aren't up to standard when they need them. Is that true? Is that what you've experienced?
Well, absolutely. And this is just the nature of government bureaucracy versus the speed of the war or the speed of the innovation that we have in the technological aspect. This is 100% true that Russia is a centralized kind of a autocracy, if not worse, in terms of how they would manage their operation, their military production. And Ukraine is far more democratic or liberal in that aspect. It's more decentralized and more of a smaller initiatives that are taking over. Um, and what we do is mostly we focus not on like building drones or anything, but just on supplying the stuff that is needed to make those drone work better. Uh, Regarding the drone stuff, the gear that we supply, mostly the antennas, VDXs, radio controllers, anything that is, as you said, is just not possible to keep up with the speed of innovation. Because in Ukraine, we also see this problem because we also have government supplied drones in my unit also. And to be frank, I don't blame the government or anything, but I understand why it is such because I studied public policy and I understand the loop between one person saying, hey, we need this new type of drones with updated frequencies, and what needs to happen in the government bureaucracy so it gets to the unit, like finished pieces that they could use on the front line. And it's at best 6 months process.
Yeah.
So in Russia, it's even longer. Um, but yeah, most of the drone gear that we have supplied is just, let's say, 100 VDX that is needed to make those government supplied drones more functional or more safe to the operators or anything like that.
So you
It's
you
kind of
provide
similar.
component you can provide components that make what would otherwise be not so useful drones be a little bit more competitive.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a standard procedure in our unit, in our company, that everything that we get from the government, we just most of that we just need to fix. It's good, but in our cases, we would need, let's say, different frequencies or different
Yeah.
cameras. So either we would find someone who would buy that for us, these specific little components. These are literally small chips of metal, radio chips or anything. Or we would try to, I don't know, buy it ourselves. So chip in with our military salaries and together get the result that we want.
Yeah, yeah, and that appears to be, a large part of what Jigger's Paw does. I'm interested in where you get drones. I know you do a lot more sort of drone components maybe than drones. I don't know, but from both the charity point of view and from the unmanned systems point of view, what proportion of drones are made in Ukraine? So, for example, when we look at your page here, your project page,
Yeah.
you've got, Ukrainian-made drones is a thing there. Like, what do you try and get stuff from Ukraine? Is there an advantage for that, disadvantage, and what does it look like in Ukraine as a whole with the armed forces?
Um, I would say one of the most typical drones that you could see on Ukrainian front lines, both from Ukrainian and Russian side, it's Mavic, DJI Mavic 3, Mavic 3 Thermal, Mavic 3 Pro, and these kind of drones. Why is that? Because they are extremely efficient. The way they are built, the way they handle, the amount of attention that Chinese put into that software and hardware is enormous. And I'll be honest, it's very hard to compete with that quality for the same money. Anyway, this is not anyhow feasible, but we still, in Zygaspor, we still buy them a lot, um, even though they are Chinese and we hate it. But that is the question of our survival. Also, we buy Ukrainian-made drones. There are some Ukrainian innovative companies of defense tech that are creating solutions specifically tailored to the army's needs. And well, the scope of this discussion is solely the quadrocopter, kind of a drone for recon or dropping bombs or whatever. This industry, I guess, skyrocketed here in Ukraine, and we have some very and very capable products that are, I guess, if not, they are on their way to replace this Mavic kind of a
So
thing.
are the Mavics used for? Are they mainly used for reconnaissance, and then
Yes,
other drones
yes,
are used for FPVs and
yes, yes.
right? Okay.
Exactly. So in Ukraine, we wish that we would be able to completely be autonomous in terms of drone production, but it's nearly impossible. If
Yeah.
I'm being honest, maybe, yes, we can do motors. That is fairly complicated, but we can do it. And I have seen some of the examples. We can do frames, not complicated at all. We can do, but it's not possible for us to make controller units like chips.
So that seems to be the main thing is the microchips, and
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I saw a plan for Ukraine to start making microchips recently, which sounds really obvious, but it's probably more difficult to get up and running than you'd think. And you look at the US. With the dependence on Taiwan, and if Taiwan is threatened by China. This is why maybe Biden did the Chips and Science Act, where he's trying to get microchips built within the US from a security point of view, national security point of
yeah.
view, as much as from an industrial point of view. And now you've got Trump coming along and saying, well, actually, Taiwan. Blah blah blah. I don't want to be buying our chips from them. And he's kind of throwing Taiwan off to the wolves. Under the idea that I guess they're going to make their own. Is it realistic for Ukraine to be able to make their own microchips?
I literally have no idea because this is managed by, we have this Ministry of Strategic Production kind of a thing.
Is that
Uh,
what Commission used to be in charge of?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And I think he still is, if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
he's within. I don't quite know what he does now because if he's taken away from being the Minister of Strategic Industries and then put within Zelensky's own circle in charge of strategic industries. So it's
Hmm.
like he's like just moved closer to Zelensky or something. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, so I literally have no idea if it is feasible or possible for us. That would be great if we would be able to do so. But for me, with all of the knowledge that I have, it seems far from realistic.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. And talk to us about fiber optic drones because they are obviously the talk of the town of the moment at the moment because they are resistant to electronic warfare. What are the advantages? How can you deal with them? And who has the advantage big time at the moment?
I think it's a tie at the
Right.
moment.
So
So
that
the
means Ukraine
concept,
has really reacted and
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. We have plenty of them at the moment. Um,
cool.
The concept of those fiber optic drones is kind of simple because, as I've talked earlier about those jamming systems that would jam the radio signal, people tried to come up with something that is impossible to jam. And it's impossible to jam if you're putting the signal through the cable. And yeah, you have this kind of a spinning thing with tons of cable on it, and it literally flies and leaves that kind of a trail of
Uh,
fiber optic. It's a very how do you say, thin, small kind of a thing, almost impossible, similar to the fishing thing that you have. Um,
I was
Almost
speaking.
impossible
Sorry.
to,
Yeah, carry
yeah,
on,
go
carry
on.
on. No, no, you carry on.
Um, what we do with these kind of things, the best case, what we have included in our operational procedures, because we are also a target for those kind of drones, is that we carry 20 gauge half automatic, semi-automatic shotguns
Yeah.
with us on apart from our AKs on the missions, and we then have at least some chance of shooting them down. Those shotguns, they also have special ammo specifically made for shooting down the drones. It has more of a shrapnel in it, and on a distance of about 20-25 meters in our training, we were able to shoot them down, no problem at all. So if you're paying attention, you have at least some chance for survival. But the main disadvantage of those drones is that it's not possible for them to fly through many of like urban area, or because of the wire that can quickly mess up with all the buildings, the trees, and
I
so
was
on.
under the impression that that wouldn't be too much of a problem because if they get caught up the wires, then they just spool out more. So if it's flight, it's not like if it was tethered and it couldn't extend further, then obviously that would snap and it'll put. But if it can just easily spool out further, it can get caught on stuff and still be able to go on. But is that still an issue then? Just getting snagged up?
Yes, yes, it's
Okay.
absolutely the issue, and because it gets it damages pretty quickly when bent.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of hard band in the fiber optic, well, starts breaking the signals and the packets and
Yeah.
so on. So still a problem, but what Russians did, at least from what I have seen, is they tried to park them somewhere close to the front line, and then if there is a signal that someone is coming, some Ukrainian assault or anything, they just put them up, and they do not have that long distance that they have to fly to the spot to hit the target. So just fly up, and maybe you have 1 kilometer to hit the target or anything. And mostly they use them in a straight line from what we have seen in their channels. That's how we actually get some open source intelligence from them.
So I was in Kiev recently, and with James from Why in Ukraine, he has his own YouTube channel. He's now an American. He's now in the Birds of Fury sort of drone unit, and he was actually in Kiev getting some spools of. Actually, before I go on to that, he's getting some spools of fiber optic, and it was rather like that where he was talking about the problems of having a drone and then having this kind of heavy thing at an angle spooling out, because if you bank the drone, he said it's like a ballerina carrying a suitcase. It's like
Hmm.
it can really throw. You need something like, that's why those cylinders that you see are much better, because those cylindrical ones that kind of distribute the weight more evenly, you can just plug them underneath. So there are issues with these, but anyway, I don't know
Yeah,
if you have
yeah.
anything to say to that.
The weight distribution is always one of the key issues in any flying objects, and specifically in those that we are attacking. Well, in those fiber optic kind of drones, I do not really see how they would replace the normal drones with the radio signal. And we have seen that because of some of the drones that we have, they are able to change the frequencies quite frequently. Hey, it can hit more targets actually, because Russian electronic warfare, well, first, not each and every Russian soldier has electronic warfare device, especially when we are talking infantry. Most of their mechanized things, they do have it, and sometimes it's shitty. We get the intel from there is that kind of section of radio electronic intelligence. I don't know how do you say it in
Mm,
English, RER, basically, and they are monitoring who is using what kind of electronic warfare systems in the area, if there are any huge ones that could be potential targets. And based on that, our FPV pilots can pick the right drone to launch at the right frequency to hit Russian target. Well, I guess because it's impossible to jam it.
yeah.
We um, as ourselves as a unit who is a target for that kind of a drone warfare, for those FPV drones, we have realized that it's impossible to cover all of the frequencies out there. We bought a crazy ass expensive electronic warfare device for like I think 7 grand, and it covers 8 different frequencies, so almost the whole spectrum. But then you still have to have like a device that would signal you what kind of frequencies drones around you are flying. Then there is a coordination issue because let's say we could jam our own drones, the drones that our brother in arms are flying in the area, and yeah, a shitload of problems with it.
Yeah.
So I would say that just having this EV jammer is not a 100% solution that saves you. And this is what our FPV pilots have been abusing so much,
So
especially in Russia.
yeah, so I mean, I don't really understand this stuff, but can you get drones that can hop the frequencies to
Yes.
switch
Yeah.
frequencies so that then you've got the electronic warfare like hopping frequency. It's like this cat and mouse game between the
Yeah.
drone and the jammer. Um,
Yes, basically, it makes so this thing hopping the frequencies called in Ukrainian paperche. It's something that makes the drone a little bit more expensive, but
yeah,
well, it increases your chances of hitting the target. It's not really feasible with drones that you only use one time
yeah,
because of
yeah,
money aspect of
yeah.
thing, because of the economics of war. But at the same time, it's widely used in any reconnaissance unmanned aircraft,
I
like almost in any.
I was fascinated to look at Magyar's. So you've got Magyar's birds, and he's like the drone king, right? And
Mhm.
he brought out his stats, I think, for last year, and the percentage of success he had, and also the average number of flights for different drones. And I'm sure his Mavics was like 86. I was blown away that he would get that many flights out of drones on average for those, and then another type, it may be in the Mavics with 30 something, and then another type was 80 something. The kind of reusable drones, but I was quite amazed. But then, of course, he's got the expertise. Before I talk about that with you, James from Why in Ukraine that I was mentioning that I met in Kiev. So he's saying it might be a good idea for my engineers to talk to yours. He like. So he's asked whether I can pass on your contact details to him. He's out there at the moment. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah,
If I have
that's
time,
brilliant.
I'm happy to help, happy to talk to you.
That's brilliant. And he said, then my dog can meet his dog. So
Yes,
um,
exactly.
that's the main thing. So with regard to the drones that you utilize, what are their, how, in terms of for FPV drones, kamikaze drones in general, and I know this is going to change from unit to unit, areas of the front line, etc., but generally speaking, like what's a ballpark figure for the success rate of the average FPV drone? So if you had 10
Mm.
drones, how many are going to hit the target?
Well, in our unit, what we had as a success rate, it largely depends first the amount of equipment that you have, like the right antennas that you can put out from your, I don't know how to call it in English, but I don't know,
Command posts.
encampment,
Yeah.
dugout, or anything. So all of these antennas, they really matter because this is the way that radio signal works. Um, the skill of the operator, I would not say that if you have 1,000 hours in a liftoff, it's gonna anyhow largely influence what is, are you a good pilot or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would actually say that these are very simple moves and quite simple job. Mostly has to do with the engineering stuff of it. Um, I think in our case, it's more of like 30-40% out of drones launched, they successfully hit the target.
Yeah, and of course that
And
doesn't mean that the drone takes out the target, because sometimes a target needs like 3 or 4 drones to really immobilize
yes,
it.
yes. And also you have a ton of problems because this is the technology part. Well, in normal arms, and if you were shooting, I don't know, artillery or anything or AK, um, these problems are largely mitigated already or fixed because of how long this technology is out there already in the war. But with FPV drones, it has so much of ad hoc components and all of those radio modules that you literally buy off AliExpress and then someone solders it, and it's one hell of a mess, I would say. That is the technology that we are using because it's innovative and it helps to delete enemies faster, but doesn't mean that it's 100% safe. And well, unfortunately, not in our unit, but we had some cases working with the people in our foundation who have been killed specifically by different malfunctions that
I
FPV drones have.
I was going to raise money for a NAFO truck for one particular unit that my friend Pierre, who was with us out in Ukraine, but he's a humanitarian worker working out of Kramatorsk, and he knew this unit, and we were going to raise money for them. And just as we were going to start raising money for them, it was a drone unit. His commander was killed with an explosion of his own drone, and the guy that was our contact was injured and had to be in rehab in Kiev. So yeah, definitely this happens, and it's obviously really sad
Yeah,
when it does.
and what happens when you start working with unknown, dangerous technology, and when it's literally being spread out very wide in the armed forces, given that not everyone is an expert first on the technology and then on the explosive and
Yeah,
side of thing, and then you have these shitload of initiation devices that are dangerous as hell. It's very simple to teach a person to shoot an AK because you have this safety trigger. I don't know, how do you call them?
yeah. Safety
Um,
catch.
but with the drone, it's 100 times more complicated, and the um, adoption of technology has not made it safe yet, I would say, or 100% safe or foolproof.
Yeah. Just to remind people that the link to Jigger's Paw has been put in the live chat by JR. It's also in the description to the video below. So if anyone can help out with Jigger's Paw, that'd be great. They do an absolutely phenomenal job. So if we move a little bit off drones now to, well, actually, no, let's the last bit on drones in terms of the Unmanned Systems Brigade. So just explain to us what happened in the reorganization of the armed forces. So there were and are still drone units right throughout all the units on the front line. So
Yeah.
most units will have their own drones for reconnaissance and for striking and etc., I presume. But then the Ministry of Defence decided to create a separate unmanned systems. So talk about what the scope of that is and how it gets used, how it's
Well,
organised.
as you said, there are ground forces or the Marines or whoever else who has their own, mostly companies or yeah, mostly companies of combat drones,
Mm.
and they are all of those ground forces or marine units or air assault units. They are doing the just holding the line. I would call them linear formations, and they are subordinates to the operative tactical command or OTU mostly. What is created here in unmanned systems forces that I am a part of is a new separate command that is supposed to tackle all of the experience and the knowledge that is being created within the combat with drones in Ukraine and spread it out to different units. And different units, including those under their command of unmanned systems forces, and also in the ground forces, in the Marines, in the air assault, and so on and so forth. They also have under their command specific battalions, regiments, and so on. Their job is to be non-linear formations that are supposed to make specific parts of the front line much stronger when Ukraine needs it. So if we are facing enormous shortage of people, firefighter units like my battalion could be called to help, saying, "Hey guys, we need your help at Kursk," and then we are getting in there. Figuring out how we can work, figuring out what is the safe, unsafe options that we have, and then for a couple of months, half a year, work there nonstop with our more aggregated kind of expertise to destroy as much Russian targets as we can in the area. And this is supposed to turn the tide, or I don't know, turn the tables. Yeah, that's how we call it. Turn the tables in that little particular area of the front line. And each of those units, they are designed also with R&D in mind. So they are apart from their combat job, they have to do R&D to figure out how to actually make it more efficient, how to fix those issues with fiber optic drones, or how to make a new drone that is not jammable anyhow, or anything else. So these are the problems that they are supposed to tackle, apart from their combat role. That is the idea.
Oh, that's brilliant. And of course, now with the reorganization, with the whole structure of the Ukrainian armed forces into a core. So you used to have, I think, sort of military districts, but each unit would be kind of operating itself. And I guess it was all very chaotic and fractured. Now, I think moving forward, they're going to move into larger cores with some of the better organized units being at the heart of the core, and
Mhm.
other units adapting to their kind of organizational expertise.
Mm,
Is that? I mean, that's the long term goal. Is that something that you think is needed?
well, we already had that kind of a corpse system in place. The only issue is that it was not working. And the idea is that you have corps, a big formation, maybe has like 5, 10 brigades in it, that has everything that they need to it has the artillery, it has the some engineering
It's like a
battalion, it
mini
has
army.
yeah, yeah, it has everything that they need. They have the air forces for their, I don't know, particular operations. They have engineering. They have literally artillery. Everyone they need, and they are supposed to train together in the rear. They are supposed to do recruiting together in the rear, and they are supposed to then move out and fight together. Let's say we would have a new corps, and it would, let's say, be capturing Belgorod or anything like this. And they are supposed to take that coordination that they have created between themselves to the battlefield. But at the moment, it's we do have the systems, we do have corps, but the issue is that corps is taking control over some territory of the front line, but their battalions, brigades that they have, they are split out into other tactical parts of the front line. So imagine I am commanding a corps in charge of Kursk, and half of my brigades are fighting in Donetsk
Mm,
because of the historical background of this war, that it was very chaotic in the very beginning, and the that was some chaos of command. Naturally, in this kind of a warfare, and then doing the rotations was almost not possible because of the security aspect. If you start rotating the brigades in a way that they would hold on to their corps and their corps commanders, it might be a very big issue for the Russian breakthrough. So the idea is that we're going to move into that system. Regarding the unmanned forces, they are still remaining separate to that. So they are not anyhow part of any corps or anything. They are under the direct command of Sukharevsky, who is the commander of unmanned systems forces, meaning that he has the opportunity to be more flexible with the units that he has at hand. That
brilliant.
is the
And
idea.
yeah, I remember speaking to you at the meal about Zaluzhny and Syrskyi yeah, and your views. And of course, these are going to be anecdotal and personal to you. But I was talking about how Zaluzhny had as a former commander in chief, had this, people had this opinion that he was amazing, that because they kind of liked him, intuitively liked him because he looked friendly. This is my analysis of it. He looked friendly. He had like Baby Yoda like badges, and he got like that popular culture feel to him, but also he seemed competent and etc. etc. So people liked Zaluzhny, but my criticism was that they didn't really know what Zaluzhny did. Like, it's very easy to sit on social media and say, yeah, he's a really great commander, but actually, if you don't know the decisions he's making, and the theory and the strategy behind that, it's kind of a meaningless evaluation. And so when Syrskyi took over, people were like, oh, that's terrible because Zaluzhny is brilliant and Syrskyi's going to be a butcher. I was like, well, actually, you don't really know the decisions Syrskyi's made either. And so, there's a lot of lack of knowledge from people on the outside evaluating these people. And I was speaking to you, and you said, well, broadly, they're pretty much the same. It didn't really make any difference. And I thought that was really interesting. Well, like, what are your views there? Is about Zaluzhny from a kind of military political point of view? Because I know he's quite a political person, Zaluzhny, as well. And then from Syrskyi, and what do the troops think on the ground? If you're able to say any of that.
Yeah, although I'm not able to say any criticism because that's, I guess, goes against the military hierarchy.
Yeah.
I guess, as I said, they are pretty much the same. I do not, I actually have zero idea about the decisions that they are making behind the closed doors, because these are the strategic level decisions that I am, as a soldier, have literally no clue about. And they have much better information and much better operational awareness to make
Yeah.
these decisions. I would definitely say that Syrskyi and Zaluzhny, they are not anyhow new to the system or anything, and they are the guys who were in charge of our um, war before 2022, was called anti-terrorist operation or anything back in the day, and then yeah, or something else then in English. I don't recall the name. And they are literally the best generals that we have at the moment. Syrskyi was the first guy after Zaluzhny, well, the greatest general that we have after Zaluzhny. So it was quite obvious that he would be appointed. He was commanding the ground forces, and largely was in charge of Kharkiv operation, and also some people say that he was in charge of Kiev defense in 2022, which both to me seems great. At the same time, armies or fighting a war is such a complex thing, and
Mm.
it's impossible for us to, at least at the moment, to know all of the tricky details that
Mm.
are going on in the general staff. It's just impossible, and obviously, no one's gonna ever talk about this, especially in the times of war. But the reality is that we do not really have any better generals than Zaluzhny and Syrskyi, and they are not so bad either, I would say. The problem is that, well, these guys are like what, 50 or anything, and we do not have that mm, super fancy young generation of generals, because first it's impossible to be a general if you're like 20 or anything, and then because we didn't prioritize our defense 30 years ago, 20 years ago. That's Ukrainian army and military academies have somewhat became a shitty place, if I'm being really honest with you. Uh, and not the brightest people actually stayed because of the low salaries, because of low social status, and because there was nothing really to do in the army. And most of the smart people, they just went and created some fancy businesses. They moved abroad or started traveling or moved to a normal job, like where you can make some good money and live your best life, because there is no war, so no need to be in the army. But now, at the moment, we are seeing
It's
an
like you're trying to
enormous
catch up at the
influx.
yeah, you're trying to catch up at the moment while in a war.
Yeah. We have now an enormous influx of soldiers, officers who have been either drafted or just came in themselves since 2022, and many of them are willing to take the responsibility to command and willing to learn that how to do that properly, even though their civilian background is mostly like managing or business. One of the great examples could be Khartia, one of the National Guard brigades that are extremely effective and led by a guy from a purely business background,
Is that
well, now
Prokopenko?
a colonel in that brigade.
Is that
Uh, s-
Prokopenko?
no, not Prokopenko, but let me just
Prokopenko.
Google him. Uh,
When it
yeah.
when it
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say with the Zaluzhny, someone's asking here, and this is a good question, I think, from Da Vinci. Did Zaluzhny fail to push through to Kherson directly after Kharkiv? So there's lots of theories about what happened in Kherson and about how the Russians weren't chased quickly enough. And some people saying that there was an agreement with Russia at the time with America, and like there were nukes being threatened and blah blah blah. And there are other people just saying actually it was really difficult around Kherson, and the Ukrainians were actually losing quite a lot themselves, and they couldn't really chase the Russians as quickly as they would like, and so the Russians were able to get loads of equipment out across the river, etc., etc. Is there anything you can any light you can shed on that?
Mm. Unfortunately not. I
No.
guess all of that situational awareness is right there in the general staff when
Yeah,
they are
yeah,
planning these kind of operations. I wasn't there as a soldier at that time,
yeah,
so literally no idea, unfortunately.
yeah. But yeah, you were saying that there's a guy from the NGU National Guards unit that
Yeah. Obolensky Ihor Georgievich, his name. So this is kind of the generation of new generation of modern commanders of Ukraine's army that are moving quite fast through the ranks, and this is well deserved actually because of the battlefield successes that they show and how they can manage a huge organization of people. Well, there is one brigade in Ukraine, Third Assault Brigade.
yeah,
They are
yeah,
like 14,000 people at the moment. It's insane. Well, they are being formed into a corps
into
right
a core,
now.
yeah,
Yeah, but still, to manage an organization of 14,000 people, and also I have some knowledge that they have civilian organizations that work for them as a contractors to do all of that media, to do all of those recruitment ads and so on.
interesting.
It's a big operation, if I'm being honest, and rightfully so, they are being promoted and they are given more responsibility and more space. And in the
It's
times of war, we are kind of growing new generation of officers, mostly made from literally civilian people.
it's fascinating that that units now have their own kind of PR departments. It's almost, going back to like the idea of crowdfunding. So there's crowdfunding happens not just for the armed services as a whole, but actually more from individual units going out and doing that, and
Mhm.
individual units talking about how good they are so that they can attract more people, boots on the ground, and more investment and crowdfunding, etc., etc. So there's this kind of a PR machine with each unit, and the better a unit does, it's kind of a snowball. The better it does, and then the problem is the worse a unit does, the more difficult it is to sell how good it is, and so it doesn't get the boots on the ground, and so it gets even worse and worse. And so there's a polarization, perhaps, which is why the core idea might be quite good if somebody like the 3rd Assault Brigade are taking in some of these poorer units, and then being able to swap best practices and help them to get up to the standards that they're at. So, yeah, I don't know if you got anything to say about that.
Yeah, I would mostly agree, and I definitely see that. Well, good units are being promoted. Good units that are showing great results. They are being extended from battalion to a regiment, from regiment to a brigade, from a brigade to corps, is what we see right now. And this is only about the way that you manage people, the way that you manage the whole operation. For some reason, we have a shitload of brigades that no one wants to go into, but at the same time, we have the same infantry brigades like 3rd Assault or Azov, 12th NGU Brigade National Guard, that literally have a waiting list to
Yeah.
join them because they have so much people that they are not able to take more. So they have to
Wow.
wait for quite some time. This is a good sign that there are people who are putting more energy, attention, effort into the whole thing, and there are people who are more ignorant. And I guess given the state of our army, how cruel it would be, but we would need to identify those great units and give them more rights, give them more space to create, to innovate,
Yeah.
and all of those rather bad units, they should either join those that are good and yeah, just keep up somehow because that is an enormously big machine that needs to function and that needs to run somehow.
That's fascinating. I really, really appreciate your inside knowledge. Yes, as we kind of move to a close, there'll be there's a few questions from the audience just to go through. I just want to get your idea on how this war ends, and what you think, um how hopeful you are at the moment, what you think this situation is as far as you can say. I was reading
Mhm.
to my audience an analysis from Andrew Perpetua this morning, which I thought was absolutely on point. And I might just read that very quickly to you to see what you think about it.
Mhm.
And it's interesting hearing from Zelensky that he said the US don't have a plan. Like, everyone's talking about the US plan and they've got a plan, but of course Trump said he'd solve this within one day, even before the inauguration, and that didn't happen. His man Keith Kellogg, there's so many mixed messages coming from America. They should be like absolutely hammering away at the sanctions, and they see, I don't know, America seems to be on fire at the moment, and it's falling apart. And I'm deeply worried that that will affect Ukraine. So actually, before we talk about like how this ends, what, just a quick synopsis of what you feel about what's going on with the United States and America, and do people on the front lines, do people in Ukrainian society, are they worried about Trump, or do they think he could be the best option? But then with what's been happening in the last week, are they still thinking that? So
Well, in Ukraine, most people really they do not give a damn about international policy or anything like this. But there are some groups of people, well, in like people in my university or people that I have in my unit that are deeply worried about this because they see the consequences. And well, I was talking to some groups of Ukrainian soldiers before Trump was elected, and they were very hopeful about him, and said, "Well, that's the guy who first sent us some real arms from the United States of America." And all of the Democrats, they were literally doing all the shady stuff to Ukraine, like Obama did with that disarmament kind of a thing. So some people were very hopeful. At this moment, they are not, and I would definitely say that we are worried that this is gonna affect Ukraine in terms of military aid, like 100%. And there is almost a consensus that Ukraine will start getting less and less amount of arms from the United States. At the same time, we're trying to find the points of touch, like talking to the representatives, to the congressmen, like writing letters, etc. That's what people do in the university, and that's what people do in the church that I'm going to, actually. Um, there is definitely a lot of unexpected events to happen, and most people don't really care about what happens inside the United States with all of those cutting off the USAID, with all of those dismantling the CIA almost, and
Even though
all of
that
the
each of those things will actually have an effect on Ukraine. So US aid is
yes, yes,
very, yeah,
yes.
very like impactful on Ukraine, and CIA, counterterrorism, like it's all connected.
Yes, true, but most people in Ukraine cannot connect those dots
Yeah.
and they just really don't really care about this. But well, I guess we would see the consequences of Elon Musk putting his hands into the United States government machine um, quite soon. Maybe in a year already, we would see a different America. Hopefully a better one.
This, I think, this is one of the most powerful pictures. I was sent this by my mate Mark. Elon Musk with unfortunately Adolf Hitler underneath. But there you go.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So what I was gonna read you with regard to how this ends, and I know I've kept you for a long time, so thank you. Andrew Perpetua says there's absolutely no reason for Ukraine to negotiate with Russia at all for any reason in the year 2025. Any negotiations should start in mid 2026 when the Russian economy has imploded. Their deficits are blasting off the moon and Russia can no longer fight. This will be in 2026. Every country should be looking at the situation like this. We only have to get Ukraine through the next 12 to 18 months. We need to throw in the money, weapons, and ammo available now to make this happen. This is not a forever war. This is a 1 year left war. We are 75% done. Russia will have absolutely no ability to wage war after 2027, zero ability. Bringing the war into 2027 should be the threat to Russia. If we supply Ukraine through to that time period, Russia risks absolute implosion. If Russia cannot end the war by then, the nation of Russia may no longer be sustainable. And that is what we use as a negotiation tactic to get Ukraine's land back. Furthermore, this has always been the win scenario for Ukraine, always, not counteroffensive. So Ukraine can't militarily win this war. It is bringing Russia to the brink and forcing them to leave willingly. That is how Ukraine wins. It was always their path, and victory has never been closer than it is right now. At the end of the day, Russia cannot post $50 to $100 billion annual deficits. They have nobody to borrow money from. The only way to fund the war would be through enormous levels of inflation and mass layoffs. The entire economy would fall apart, every sector of it. And Russia has no cushion left. They do not have liquid assets to last more than a few months at most. There are no alternatives left. Russia is standing with its heels on the edge of the cliff and being forced to keep backing up. Another step and it will fall. This is why we went all in 2024. They used this is why Russia went in all in 2024. They used every single drop of power they had, every single area, propaganda, which most of you fell for, mobilization, throwing forth vehicles, missiles, drones, everything, cutting electric lines in countries, cutting sea cables. But ultimately, none of it worked in Ukraine. They failed. They didn't capture enough ground. They didn't weaken the Ukrainian government. Now Russia is screwed, and all we have to do is survive one more year. And while Russia burns the last of their midnight oil, sorry, this is a long one, and you will know the point where Russia is well and truly screwed. It will be the day that Putin says he wants to negotiate. When Putin wants to negotiate, that means wait 6 to 8 more months. That is the day negotiations should start. I guarantee you Putin will want to start soon. Negotiations should go like this. Putin asks for negotiations. You say we're not ready yet. Wait 6 to 8 months. Putin will ask again. You agree to start, make it drag on for another 6 to 12 months. Every day that passes, Putin gets weaker and more eager to end things. Eventually, he will give you what you want. And of course, that comes at the expense of Ukrainian lives. But that's a general point there. Do you kind of agree? Because I think that's pretty sound.
Well, I would love to see some numbers behind this analysis,
Sure.
but generally it sounds very plausible and sounds like exactly what most people would love to hear. And like
Yeah.
in the Ukrainian society, that would do miracles if we would start talking like that to people. But actually, we had already these kind of issues saying, hey, maybe Russia has the missiles for another couple of months and that's it, you know. And the idea that Russia is going to fall economically is not new. It's something that
Yeah.
we had in mind
Agreed.
in 2022, 2023, all the way through 2024. That's something that was circulated in Ukrainian media all the time, although it never happened. And I wish that would be the case, that we would be able to anyhow win over Russia because they would collapse. But at the same time, I would not agree that um, to the fact that Ukraine cannot win militarily, just because Ukraine has shown that it is capable of being the force doing the mechanized breakthrough a couple of times already. And this is, I guess, given that if we would give enough arms to the Ukraine's forces, actually there is a good amount of people who would be able to use those arms and make some great progress, especially with any type of asymmetric warfare, like capturing ground in Russia and doing raids and these kind of things. So I would say that military um, mm, alternative military perspective, military offensive is still very possible. It's just a pity that we were not ever given the real medium range missiles, and the best we've got was like some 200 kilometers or something. That is just not right, given that we have the intel for targets 1,000 kilometer and more inside of Russia, and that would weaken their economy so much, especially given that Ukraine already pulled this trigger with their oil facilities, some hundreds kilometers inside Russia. I find this point of view very plausible, very like I would want to believe that,
Yeah.
but I am not new to this story, and I'm hearing this Russia would collapse next month, next year, kind of a
So
thing all the time.
what Andrew does, and I'd be interested in what your view of this is. What Andrew does is him and his team and Tochny, they look at all the video footage. He works insanely hard. He does data analysis and he sees all of the destruction and he tabulates it all, and a bit like Oryx, but better.
Yeah.
And they've got, and he also does mapping based on where all the shelling is and where all the stuff is. So really amazing stuff that him and his team do. So he's got a really good sense of what's changed throughout the war because he's done that every day, like 20 hours a day, looking at like satellite images and blown up stuff. And he has an idea of like now we're seeing more and more like Bukankas and quads and even bloody larders and stuff getting used in a contact zone area. Have you noticed there's a change in equipment being targeted by your own units in frontline areas that suggests that there is a problem with equipment for the Russians?
Yes, but it always was the case. Like, well, given the fact that they're using electric scooters, I guess
Yeah,
it's stupid, but in a way, it's smart because
yeah,
back in the
I
day, they
agree.
used to just walk, and you cannot walk or run for that big amount of time, you know. As a throwable item, it's not that bad. It has some sense in it. Same goes with the quadricycles or quads. Still, it's very capable. Still, same goes with motorcycles.
I
It's
agree.
not stupid.
Yeah, my theory is that you know, you one BMP with 20 people in it or 20 motorcycles. 20 motorcycles is more difficult to
Yes,
hit because
yes,
so
absolutely.
there are some advantages, of course, but
And
the
that's why they
general,
use. Yeah, you're going.
well, I was just going to, the general idea is that they have lost so much equipment, and you know, even if the general staff figures are like mostly correct, is you know, and you look at the satellite images of the bases back in Russia, the storage facilities, they are running out. You know, September is thought to be the time when they would have completely run out of infantry fighting vehicles and APCs from deep storage, and then you get into a critical point, and that's the idea, is that if you can push on past that, then that is where the hydrocarbons, so if your oil refineries and oil depots keep getting hit, you know, this is why I said all along, missiles and drones, Ukraine needs to ramp up production of medium range missiles and long range missiles, and the West needs to provide. That's what you need, because Ukraine doesn't lose soldiers if you're shooting missiles into Russia. Like, that's the best way of destroying Russia. So you put all of those things together, and I think you can push through. And maybe Andrew's got a plausible explanation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Although each and every part of this has some issues to tackle, like the fact that they are using not using that much of mechanized things to run their assaults is just because they figured out that it's not anyhow effective. It doesn't make any sense to run that assault with a shitload of BMPs or anything. Just better to let your infinite infantry run all the way up there. And to us, it's a tragedy, right? If you lose an entire company of your infantry guys, but to them, it's just another day at work, you know.
Mm,
And they would just get more and more. The also what he mentioned, Andrew, in his analysis is that Russians are doing some kind of mobilization. Well, I do not think that's anyhow true. They have volunteer kind of a contracts to sign, so they are mostly relying on recruiting in their system. And the highest numbers at the moment in Russia is about 4 million uh, rubles as a sign-up bonus when you sign the contract, and then you have some federal bonus, and then altogether for the first months you get around 50,000 US dollar, which is in Russia an enormous amount of money. And also they offer debt write-off for up to 10 million Russian rubles, which is about some hundred thousands or something, almost 100,000 US dollar in debt write-off when you sign a contract. Um, I would not be so sure that it signals of poor economy, but it definitely is not a signal of a strong economy too,
mm.
given what we know about Russia. But at the same time, still people signing up, they go to fight, and they are actually being paid for it. For how long Russia is going to keep up the tempo? Do they have the capacity to do the mobilization? I would argue that yes, and there are a lot of people who would be um, okay to be forcibly mobilized to fight against Ukrainians, and that is a general idea that, as out there in their society, that Ukrainians are bastards, Nazis, to be destroyed. They killed too many of our great guys, captured Kursk Oblast, and tortured each and every old granny out there. And that kind of combined with general mythology of Russia, saying they're great fighter of Nazis and fascists in World War II, and now that they have kept running this myth onto their population, and they just said, well, now the Nazis are Ukrainians, so they kind of shift that target of hate, of destruction to their population. I guess they're going to be pretty successful in that. Maybe I'm way too pessimistic about that, but I think that it's
Well,
far early to say
yeah, I
we are
mean,
on the verge of economical collapse of Russia.
yeah, yeah, and I get that. I think it's a combination of the West needs to keep up and ramp up its sanctions. Ukraine needs to keep hitting the hydrocarbons and those oil refineries and depots, and keep doing all these things together. But of course, holding it on the front line, and Russia, the question is, will they do a full mobilization or not? And they've put that off because it will be, I think, economic suicide if they did so. But it is something that Putin can still do. Just a few thanks here. Thank you, Kevin Haran, for a ATP Geopolitics membership. Thank you, Richard Bennett, for 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Really kind. And also Niels Clement for likewise. Very generous of you. And hopefully people have been donating to Dzyga's Paw as well, linked in a live chat and below. Thanks to BTC Bandit for a super sticker. Really, really generous. A question here from Julian Rossiter. Do drone pilots have a priority list of targets? For example, try to take out an expensive radar over a tank, or do you just go out and just hit whatever you can see?
In our case, as my role is purely the reconnaissance, but we do have a priority list of targets, mostly the targets of, Russia has those big EV systems that are doing both the jamming and reconnaissance. Systems like Zoopark, that's a
Zoopark,
big,
yeah.
or any air defense kind of systems. So, well, that's the priority for our unit. But for other units, the priority with what they have in stock, like for units that are running small FPV drones of 7-inch or anything, just hitting the infantry. And hitting one infantry guy is okay. That is their daily work, I would say. For some units, they are mostly doing the mechanized things such as tanks and BMP, BMD, or anything like this. So really depends on the unit and on what they have in their hands. But all the units are trying to utilize what they have the best way they can. For me, with my kind of tool that I have for the reconnaissance, it would not be smart to look at one Russian guy running in the field, because I could do a completely different type of job that other people cannot do. So we are better useful targeting the air defense pieces that they have.
Brilliant, thanks for that. And just almost finally, developing weapons to counter Russian guided aerial bombs, Zelensky's written. So today there's news that a carb bomb was taken out in Zaporizhia. We've heard recently that there may be new laser weapons being used. We know the UK's been helping with that, but there's also the claim that the Ukrainians have made their own version. Is there anything you can say about sort of guided glide bombs, anything that's been done about them?
Unfortunately, have no idea on this.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just hopeful that you might be like, yeah, that was me.
No.
I did it myself
No,
yesterday.
not really,
um,
not really.
do you think NATO are likely to send any troops into Ukraine? Is this something that you guys are hoping for?
We would hope for, but unfortunately, we just do not have such partners that would be able to at least keep the north side of the country protected. And it comes with enormous political consequences. So, who in NATO or Ukraine allies could send troops? Let's count. Poland. explicitly said that no Polish infantry or anyone else, like a jet fighter, will ever step on the territory of Ukraine. Never, because they are worried about themselves, because they think they are next, and they rightfully so. Then you have the UK, right? In the UK, you literally do not have big ground forces or anything, and this is the war of ground forces. Maybe you could send your navy guys here, I don't know, to protect our north border, but they would be useless here, obviously. So they have maybe like 5 feasible brigades that they can send here, but I don't think that's gonna make any difference, honestly. Then you have Germany, who is a great ally, but at the same time, politically, boots on the ground is deeply unpopular among German society, because even like sending us Towers missiles, they ran a poll in
Mm.
German society. How popular is that? And that was like 80% something considered an escalation, and that's something that we should never do as a German
And
society, as a Germany.
they'd have to change their law as well to send
Yeah,
troops as
yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. So this obviously means that German society would think that boots on the ground is even bigger escalation, and that would be against that. So
Mm.
against the will of the people, there is not much you can do. And then there is France, who has said things like that, but never delivered on them. And I generally think that sending any forces of NATO to Ukraine, um, I personally think that's a great idea, just because they would be able to learn what the real war is. War against a peer adversary that is as capable as you are, and a real combat. They should learn here. I think that's the issue of a national security for European nations, but they are not quite there yet in understanding that they need to keep up with newest warfare. Um, and then it's a political disaster, because obviously some soldiers will get killed here, even if they do not see any combat.
Mm.
It could
Yeah.
be they would step on a landmine or
Yeah.
anything, or maybe they would just shoot an accident at the training range or anything. Things like that happen all the time in any army, even in peacetime, even when they are back home. But
Yeah.
this will happen here, and everyone in let's say France or in Germany or in the UK will blame the government and say, hey, that's not our war. And then we face another hybrid warfare kind of a threat
Yeah.
that Russians will obviously amplify. And even if there are like 5 people in the country who would say, well, it's kind of stupid that we sent people to Ukraine to be boots on the ground, Russians would amplify and make it look like it was 5 billion people shouting
Yeah.
this all at once. So I guess almost impossible for us to see any conventional force of a
I
NATO
mean, you got
country
the
fighting
Baltic
side to side.
nations. The Baltic nations seem to be the most up for it because they are the closest,
Y-
and maybe Norway and Sweden, Finland. But yeah, whether it be NATO or a unilateral or a coalition of the willing, as they call it, I don't know. I mean, it seems unlikely, and it wouldn't happen for quite a long time, and you'd have to have a ceasefire first. I would have thought. So
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
and those Baltic nations, I mean, like, oh, no offense, but they do not have
yeah,
the size
they're
of the
small.
armies that they can send here. If, let's say, Estonia sends 10,000 people to Ukraine, uh, then their home army will need to get
Yeah.
10,000 people more, and that is a kind of a complicated thing. And that is another like a drill of 3 months training or anything. That's a long war to fight. So I don't really think that's possible,
Um,
unfortunately.
so JR says, as a drone unit, do you celebrate a good hit, or has it become so
Yeah,
normalized you don't?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, still,
Some people are more, um, I don't know, bloodthirsty. I'm not one of them, but I definitely seen some young guys being like extremely angry at Russians for what they did
yeah,
to their homes. And yes, they celebrate quite well when, let's say, Russian get hit in funny way or anything like that. But
Mm.
for our kind of unit, just doing the reconnaissance and juicy targets, it's more of a hard coordinated work. I would say it's more of an analyst kind of work. And
Do
then
you
if yep,
talking about juicy targets? Do you try and hunt out their drone operators, and are they trying to
yes,
hunt? And they trying to hunt you out? And do you,
absolutely,
is it? I guess you have to conceal yourself really well, and hopefully,
yes.
underground if possible. But yeah, you are obviously yourself a juicy target.
Yes, absolutely. And hitting all of those crews of Zala, Orlan, and so on is always a priority because the work that they do is they just always flying over Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian front line, and they aim all of those guided missiles, CAB, and so on. So that's literally
Mm,
their job. Obviously, we would like to save our citizens from being hit by enormous aerial bomb.
yeah,
Kind of makes
of
sense.
course. Yeah. And the very final one, sorry, Tahir, thank you. I see Norway launching a rocket site in Andoya now can give satellite links to the Arctic, also used by the US and other allies. Can it be an alternative to place some satellite that can serve Ukraine? I don't know if you know anything
Mhm.
about sort of Norway and satellites and whatnot.
As much as I would like to be useful, unfortunately, I don't have the answer. I'm not that smart.
Fair,
Sorry.
fair enough. Thanks to Johnny Christensen with some Danish love there, and then of course Tahir again. Thank you for your super sticker. That's really, really kind. Well, look, Dimko, it's worth mentioning your good wife Irina, who is holding the ship steady at the good ship Jigger's Paw. And to remind people, please go and check out Jigger's Paw because they are a phenomenal organization. I will hopefully have some footage of us as a group going round their gaff and looking at all of what they do and getting a good understanding. And we interviewed your wife, so hopefully I'll put that up soon on the channel. But are there any sort of last words you want to say about Jigger's Paw or anything we haven't covered? I mean, there's so much we can
Mhm.
talk about. Goodness me, we didn't even get onto politics,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, indeed. Maybe we should do another session on generally the peace deal kind of a thing.
You're
Because
talking my language. Let's do it.
yeah, well, regarding the organization Dzyga, I would like to invite you all to the annual meeting that we have with the supporters of the organization. Um, Probably I'll just send the link somewhere.
It's all right. I've been sent it by your I don't know what's her name. She sent it out to me anyway.
Yeah, yeah, all
Is
right.
it Natalia?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I would invite you all to this. It's would be an offline event in Lviv and also will be streamed in Zoom, I guess. So just sign up with that Google form, and there, I guess there would be pretty a lot of interesting insights about first the activity of the organization during 2024 and where it's headed, then a lot of insights on what we have talked with the military guys about, and some of them will also appear there themselves offline as they promised. So will be a good thing and well, interesting for Ukraine supporters, I guess.
Excellent
I'm
stuff.
happy
Well,
to be here. Happy for talking to you all. Thank you, Jonathan, for organizing all of this, and I'm hopeful that I was useful.
oh, of course, everything you said was fascinating, and definitely people appreciating it as well. Absolutely fascinating insight, says Terracon, and I absolutely agree. And what you're doing is wonderful, both in terms of what you do yourself personally in the unmanned systems forces, but also with your charity as well that's helped so many. Hopefully, put you in touch with James. Maybe some useful networking there. But yeah, let's talk again. I know this has been a long one, but I really do appreciate it. I could talk to you for about 5 hours, so it's just, I just worry about you. But But yeah, no, really do appreciate everything you do, and I would like to, from my own channel's point of view, we've got like a list. JR sort of helped sort this all out, a kind of like what we're going to do for fundraising next, and somewhere in there is Dzyga's Paw. So we need to like do a campaign to help you guys out, but we've also got like a NAFO and another car for Ukraine one as well. So I will certainly, you know, have the link down below for this, and I will keep talking about Dzyga's Paw and keep putting out your link to get people to donate, and we'll try and sort out something more formal as we go forward.
That is great. Thank you for all the support that you have given to the Ukraine's defense. And well, I guess don't much really matter the organization. It's all in the same pot. It all goes to Ukraine's defense and to saving Ukraine's freedom. So thank you very much, and all of your
Exactly.
viewers for that. That's awesome.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, thanks to all the live chats. Thanks for joining in here. A good couple of hundred of you, and please help out as much as you can. Sorry, I thought I'd just go and die a little bit there. I was ill. I was terribly ill in after we saw you in Lviv. Got terribly ill. About 4 of us got really ill, and it affected my multiple sclerosis, and I was unable to walk for a couple of days. And it was like I was in a shocking place, and I'm still not well. But anyway, it's nothing compared to what you guys put up with on the front line, of course. So thanks again for your time, mate. Stay on the line. Thank you very much to all of you guys out there, and please help out Dzyga's Paw. They're an awesome bunch of people, and I can tell you that from my own personal experience of meeting them and seeing the work that they do. And Dimko is just absolutely brilliant. So thanks, mate.
Maybe just if you wait a second, maybe I'll have something interesting to bring. Just wait, give me a
Yeah.
second.
Ooh, yeah. That sounds good stuff. And yeah, really interesting to get a better understanding of what goes on in terms of drone warfare from someone that actually is involved doing this kind of stuff himself. So it's been really important.
Yeah, I actually have the patch of those forces, unmanned systems forces, where I'm serving. So I might just give it to you maybe for a raffle on the channel or anything like this. Here it is. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see
that
it.
is sweet. I like that. Modern and minimalist.
Yes, so I don't know, maybe next time you're in Ukraine, or maybe we could try to send it somewhere to the UK. I don't know. Let's try.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Yeah, let's sort something out on that when we do some fundraising for you, and then we can do some raffling of that, and that'd be brilliant. That's a great idea. And talking about like Dzyga's Paw,
Yeah,
there's one that's in Ukrainian, and I've got an English one version of that up there on my board somewhere. One of
great.
those ones is another one, so that's absolutely awesome. Brilliant stuff. Thanks so much for that, and let's talk again, Dimko. In the meantime, Slava Ukraini.
Herojem slava. Alrighty, talk to you later, people. See ya.
Take care. Bye bye.